Sometimes the SCP Foundation needs to get creative with how they go about securing, containing, and protecting. Sadly, not everything can be solved with a mobile task force or by locking it away securely in a concrete chamber. Which brings us to SCP-2480, otherwise known by the nickname, an unfinished ritual. When initially looking through the file on SCP-2480, the reader will immediately notice a number of discrepancies throughout. Parts of the entry have been crossed out. They've been struck through, so they are still readable, not redacted completely for the purposes of secrecy like many of the details in other SCP files. First and foremost, SCP-2480 has been reclassified multiple times, first as safe, then changed to the infamous Keter class, but now it is listed as far more ominous. Presumed Neutralized. It's disconcerting, because presumed definitely leaves a lot of questions. So what exactly is SCP-2480? SCP-2480 is an area of dimensional abnormality, apparently created when an occult ritual was interrupted in November of 1952. Hence the nickname of an unfinished ritual. The source of this anomaly is located in a heavily forested town somewhere near the coast of Massachusetts. Of course, this state has long been synonymous with many occult happenings, Massachusetts famously being home to a number of supposedly haunted houses and sites of supernatural activity, and SCP-2480 is no exception, seeming to fit both of those criteria. In order to keep an eye on SCP-2480, the Foundation has dispatched Mobile Task Force Epsilon 6, also codenamed the Village Idiots. These operatives are working undercover in the surrounding area and nearby town, keeping watch for any sightings of anomalous activity. Meanwhile, another team, MTF Psi-9 the Abyss Gazers, are stationed nearby in case any incidents should arise. These operatives have been authorized by the SCP Foundation to employ the use of lethal force on any and all anomalous manifestations they should encounter. Their directive is to destroy without prejudice. That sure sounds like a lot of effort to secure something classed as presumed neutralized. The anomaly itself is centered around an old Massachusetts house known as Bodfel Manor. The manor was once the home of a millionaire industrialist by the name of Cornelius P. Bodfel III, who died in 1952 at the age of 86. And yes, he died in the same year that the ritual that created SCP-2480 took place. But we're sure that's probably just a coincidence. Right. Interestingly, during his life, Cornelius Bodfel apparently had something of a fascination with the occult. It was likely this interest that drew him to creating a supernatural cult known as Adytum's Wake. Little is known about this organization, and Adytum's Wake are not part of the SCP Foundation's groups of interest, the list of other anomalous groups that often rival the Foundation. Much like the anomaly itself, they're presumed neutralized. The Foundation conducted a full-scale investigation into Bodfel Manor and were able to unearth more information about the aforementioned cult. Fortunately, Cornelius Bodfel kept a series of meticulous and detailed journals, as well as photographs that give plenty of insight into the activities of Adytum's Wake. Unfortunately, a lot of what they got up to wasn't all that pleasant. But what did you expect from a group of cultists? Adytum's Wake would engage in all kinds of depraved behavior, some that's better left to the imagination. What we can say is they'd often perform ritualistic human sacrifice and indulge in cannibalism, and these are some of their less unpleasant crimes. On-site personnel also uncovered sermon notes in Bodfel's journals, detailing the cult's services and occult practices. They also found lists of the Adytum's Wake members, including local wealthy families and respected politicians, other industrialists like Cornelius Bodfel, and even priests and other religious figures. The Foundation had previously been aware of Adytum's Wake, but initially dismissed the group as little more than a decadent upper-class social club not worthy of a full investigation. Let's review, shall we? We have a dimensional anomaly in a Massachusetts manor, a cult obsessed with the supernatural, and some sort of ritual that occurred in November 1952. But was interrupted before its completion. All parts of the same bizarre and twisted puzzle, but there's still a piece yet to be uncovered. That missing piece? The Global Occult Coalition. Who would have expected the GOC to rear their ugly heads around here? Though it's worth mentioning that many of the GOC's member groups are occult in nature, so it probably shouldn't come much as a surprise that they were somehow involved in this case too. It goes without saying that the SCP Foundation shares a complicated relationship with this particular group of interest, each often disagreeing with the other's methods. Occasionally, the GOC and the SCP Foundation will put aside their differences and act as allies against large-scale threats like the Scarlet King, but any alliance between them is often uneasy and short-lived. In the case of SCP-2480, the Foundation were first alerted to the anomaly's existence when they decoded a GOC distress signal, tracing its source to Bodfel Manor. When the investigative team arrived, they found deceased bodies littered throughout the estate, 36 corpses in total. Each of these were confirmed to be Coalition operatives, and the rest were theorized to be dead members of Adytum's wake. Almost all of the corpses found at Bodfel Manor displayed signs of anomalous causes of death. Some had imploded, some disintegrated, and others had their bodies twisted into fatal new shapes. At first glance, and given the GOC's mission to destroy the supernatural, it looked as if they had stormed in and interrupted the Adytum's wake cult while they were right in the middle of performing a ritual. Things went awry. SCP-2480 was created and caused everyone nearby to die horrifically. Surely that's the whole story, right? Well, not quite, as it turns out. While there were no surviving GOC operatives for the Foundation to interrogate, the investigative team were unable to uncover documents related to the operation in a nearby safe house used by the GOC. Much of the official documentation was destroyed in an attempted cover-up, but a torn remainder of a mission report was recovered in the safe house's fireplace. It was actually the Global Occult Coalition who had initiated the ritual, though its true purpose was lost. The Foundation had learned that the SCP-2480 area had been inadvertently created by the GOC and their heavy-handed approach to their mission. But why would an anti-occult organization attempt a supernatural ritual? Theories as to their intention seem to point to the penultimate piece of the puzzle: Sarkicism, a widespread religious cult that worships flesh and disease. The very existence of this religion is viewed as a threat of apocalyptic proportions by the SCP Foundation. Sarkicism was initially founded by the Grand Karcist Ion, but it has since split into a number of smaller subgroups over the millennia, and among those groups, Adytum's wake. The GOC mission report fragment gathered by the Foundation describes the operative's target to be Grand Karcist Ion himself. He apparently cannot be directly perceived, so few actual descriptions of his form exist. It has been noted by some to be humanoid in appearance at least, wearing what looks to be vestments similar to a priest's, and carrying a staff. Ion is able to disappear and reappear at will, and possesses a plethora of reality-altering capabilities. The Sarkic founder is able to shift and reshape any organic material, as well as having the ability to bend the very fabric of reality around him. While he may hold a humanoid shape, this entity is certainly not human, at least not any longer. Functionally immortal, Grand Karcist Ion is noted to frequently exhibit signs of malignant narcissism and megalomania. So now the story shifts. The GOC was attempting to use Adytum's wake to summon Ion in order for them to eradicate the leader of the Sarkic religion. The plan backfired though. SCP-2480 was summoned, and both the cult and coalition operatives were killed. End of story, right? Except there is one more twist in this tale of cults and secrets, and that twist came from the last place anyone would expect. It came from inside the SCP Foundation. After SCP-2480 was created by the ritual at Bodfel Manor, Site-13 was established in order to keep the anomalous area contained. You see, if the ritual was an atomic blast, then SCP-2480 was both the crater and the nuclear fallout from that blast. Except instead of causing radiation sickness, the entire area around Bodfel Manor became dimensionally unstable and prone to anomalous occurrences. Overseeing Site-13 was Director Simon Oswald, a Foundation bureaucrat. Simon had been selected for this duty thanks to his distinct lack of imagination, and because the anomalous area of SCP-2480 was thought to be inconsequential at the time. In 1988, Oswald failed to deliver his regular report on SCP-2480's activity. This was initially thought to be a simple error, except the Foundation couldn't get in contact with Site-13. Why? Because the unfinished ritual hadn't actually failed. it wasn't unfinished. The GOC had succeeded in summoning Grand Karcist Ion, and Simon Oswald had been the one to discover this. The founder of Sarkicism appeared to Oswald, who was converted and turned against his superiors at the SCP Foundation. Ion was able to exert his influence over the former bureaucrat, swaying him to change sides by showing Oswald a description in the Foundation's personnel dossier on him that referred to him as a mirthless dullard. Turning his back on the Foundation and pledging himself to Sarkicism, Simon Oswald was granted anomalous abilities by Grand Karcist Ion. Oswald was given the power to control an army of anomalous entities called Sarkites that he could summon through the area of SCP-2480. Grand Karcist Ion dubbed Simon with a new name, Karcist Karvas, and made him the leader of his new army. Their goal was to bring about the Sarkic religion's ideal, the dawn of a new age of flesh that would spell destruction for humanity. When the Foundation lost contact with Site-13, they dispatched 2 agents to investigate, Samuel Rowe and Sarah Valentine. Unaware of Oswald's conversion to Sarkicism and his new purpose as Karcist Karvas, both agents were captured by the Sarkite creatures within SCP-2480. The same monsters were also terrorizing the nearby town, replacing citizens and sometimes even kidnapping and devouring them. Another team was later sent in to survey the area, only to be killed or replaced as well, with only one survivor, Dr. Calixto Narvaez. Narvaez reported on the situation to the O5 Council, and in collaboration with the Global Occult Coalition, the Foundation launched an assault against Oswald. The joint task force of the 2 organizations were able to neutralize the Sarkites, reclaiming the area of SCP-2480 and capturing Simon Oswald. Without his control, the creatures became directionless, unable to so much as eat or defend themselves. Grand Karcist Ion's plan had been thwarted, and Oswald was taken back to an SCP Foundation site, though now under a new name, SCP-2480-1. However, during an operation at Containment Area 14, Oswald seemed to suffer no effects from anesthetic or surgical incision. Foundation researchers were horrified to learn that Oswald no longer possessed any internal organs, save for his brain, heart, and lungs. The rest of him was empty. Later, he was interrogated and began raving about Grand Karcist Ion so much that the doctor questioning Oswald attempted to attack him. Breaking free of his restraints, Simon Oswald amputated both of the doctor's arms before he was recontained by guards. Since then, the area of SCP-2480 has been mostly quiet, but it still remains under the Foundation's close watch, just in case any anomalous happenings start up again. But if you're planning a tour of the many haunted old houses of Massachusetts, we'd recommend maybe avoiding Bodfel Manor, just to be safe. Now go check out SCP-1730 What Happened to Site-13 and SCP-4999 Someone to Watch Over Us tale for more supernatural tales from the SCP Foundation.